I want to double check all this on volume side because I've recorded this twice with no audio and it driving me nuts. So I'm just going to test this out, make sure I can hear everything good. Recorded this twice with no audio and it driving me nuts. There we go. Okay. So I'm just going to test this out, make sure I can hear. Okay, good. Let me close all this shit out. Alright. So, like I said, I've recorded this twice and neither one of them worked correctly. It looks like it wants to work now. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over my history with role-playing games. My review, very simplistic review for Final Fantasy 15, and then I'm going to go into the upcoming stream schedule. This is more of like a vlog sort of thing, and then I'll showcase a little bit of the gameplay for 15 for those of you who haven't played it, seen it, or messed around with it at all, which isn't very many people since the game's been out over a year. Well, actually, I think it's coming on a year. I don't even know. Alright, let me get something to drink first, because this is gonna hurt. This my stupid tooth is still fucked up. Alright, so I have been playing games, video games, since I was 3 years old. I started on a Intellivision system. I started playing games like Donkey Kong, Space Invaders, Burger Time, things like that. Eventually I would move on to the NES. When I moved to Florida, my mom bought me a regular Nintendo, which was actually unheard of at the time because we were dirt poor. I got the 4-player one, so it didn't come with Mario. It came with what the hell did it come with? Some sports game or some crap I didn't give a crap about, but I played mostly like action games like Mario, Zelda, things like that. But I didn't start playing role-playing games till about the 16-bit era, not even at the beginning of it. I got the Sega Genesis because my neighbor was a close friend of mine. He got the Super Nintendo. So we figured if one of us got one, the other one would get the other, and then we'd be able to play both systems, and it'd be good. It wasn't so good. So Sega was fine. You know, we had like Sonic, and we had action games and stuff like Streets of Rage, and all that stuff. It was fun, but it wasn't what I wanted. I would end up moving on to a good friend of mine gave me I'm skipping ahead. I'm sorry. I'm tired and sore. My mom went to buy me a new game, and I asked for, I think it was Vector Man. And she ended up getting me Vector Man, but she also got me another game that was on sale called Dungeons & Dragons Warriors of the Eternal Sun. Now, I hadn't really been subjected to role-playing games yet. I played D&D, with my friends, but I didn't play a video game of it, and I didn't really understand it, so I never really touched it. I was like, okay, whatever. Good friend of mine asked to borrow it. I said, that's fine, I don't care. He borrowed it, he played it, he loved it, he told me about it. He was like, Joe, you need to play this is a really fun game, and da-da-da-da, and I was like, okay. So he explained it to me, he explained how it worked, and when I played it, I was like, oh, okay, this is fun. And that was technically my first role-playing game, but even then I didn't really take it too serious. I was like, oh, okay. Then he let me borrow Shining Force 2. His copy of Shining Force 2 didn't save, but it was fun. I loved Shining Force 2. I played that game front to back, up to down, left to right, all day, every day. And then I was like, oh wow, games like this can be fun. So then I tried playing Shining Force 1, and then so on and so forth. And then I played Phantasy Star 3. was a really fun game too. Then I moved on to. Then my friends were telling me like I had really got passed up by the Super Nintendo, because Super Nintendo was where all the really good RPGs were. We had the Final Fantasies, American 2 and 3. You had Chrono Trigger. You had Seventh Saga was a really good one. Lufia 1 and 2 were great. Like Super Nintendo had so many great role-playing games. It was ridiculous how many awesome. Secret of Evermore, Secret of Mana, like all these really cool. Well, Secret of Evermore and Mana, they're more like Zelda type, but they were still super fun. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. You know. Then I eventually would get a Super Nintendo, and then the first RPGs I really played like a lot was Final Fantasy 2 and 3. 2 is the American 4 or the Japanese 4 was good, and it was tough, it was hard, you needed to level up, you needed to do that, and I was as soon as I got subjected to that, I was like in love with Final Fantasy at that point. Like I was like, these games are fucking amazing. Like I don't care who you are, what you say, what you do, they're amazing games, super fun. Final Fantasy 3, Japanese 6 was probably one of my favorite Final Fantasy games in the whole numbered series. So again, like I played a lot of RPGs on Super Nintendo. Then we got close to Sega Saturn came out, and then we had the PS1. And when PlayStation came out, I mean, it was amazing. You had Final Fantasy VII. While it's good, it's not that good, and it's completely overrated. I mean, just like disgustingly overrated. It's so overrated. But the game is still good. It has a good story. It's a bit confusing. The gameplay is solid. I mean, it was the first Final Fantasy to have, really first RPG to have full motion video, and you had all these different variables and things like that. And while 7 was good, it wasn't as good as people. It has a huge cult following. I mean, huge, massive cult following. Then I got introduced to Final Fantasy Tactics, and that was just like, that was it. Final Fantasy Tactics was the best game, in my opinion, is the best game ever created. It had an awesome story, challenging fights. I played that game, I've probably clocked over 200 hours in that game over the years. I can tell you how sword damage is calculated, how dagger damage is calculated, how lance damage is calculated, how magic damage is calculated, all these things. Me and my friend Danny played it literally to death. We've played it different ways to make it harder. I'll tell you right now, if I had it on a current gen console, I could stream it. I would stream it all the time. It is such a great game. Awesome story. Just amazing. Like, honestly, like, no bullshit, it is one of the best games ever created. Then we got Final Fantasy 8. Okay, so they have 7, and 7 is a phenomenal success. Then you have Tactics, yet another great success, and then 8. And 8 was boring and bland, and the game looked really good, and it had like a really good soundtrack, but it was boring. The story was convoluted, but like not necessary. It was complicated on like a stupid level. It made no sense. The ending didn't make any sense. The characters were boring and dull. The one cool thing about 8 that I liked is that you had like a rival sort of thing. But everything else about 8, the game was easy. There was no point in leveling up because the monsters are always your level no matter what level you are. So that makes it really dull and really boring. And it was just bland and just, like it left a bad taste in my mouth how boring this game was. Then 9 happened, and when Final Fantasy 9 came out, this would be the last Final Fantasy game for the PS1 era. It was like a breath of fresh air. You had the white mage and the black mage looked just like they did in Final Fantasy 1. You had Garland is in the game, and that he was the main enemy in Final Fantasy 1. You had tons of references to Final Fantasy 2 and 3, American 2 and 3. References to tactics, references to 7, references to 8. I mean, it was like a huge just love letter to the whole franchise. Now, while 9 is definitely not in my top 5, it is still fun. Had good characters, good story, good development, a lot of extra stuff, a really hard end boss, optional boss, which most Final Fantasy games have, and just all this really cool stuff that I thought that the game needed that it didn't have. The 8 didn't have it. 8 had you could fight Omega Weapon, but he wasn't any harder than any other boss, and the game was really easy to exploit. So I mean, any like serious player for 8 was disappointed because there was no point in trying to max that game out because everything was like stupid easy. 8 and 9 had this they started to do this like extra mode where they would have these like card games, so you could like challenge random people to these card game battles, except the card games were random and they didn't make any sense. And like 8's card game was worse than 9 because in 8 the only way to get the cards was to beat somebody and win the card. And for like a lot of the rare cards, like they locked items behind these cards, which because there was an ability that let you absorb a card and turn it into an item. And like if you wanted to say like Ifrit and Shiva turned into rare items, they turned into like rare items, and you could like customize you didn't buy new weapons, like you customized your weapons. So to get the components you needed to like actually get these super rare cards, and it was all luck based, like complete RNG before that was even really a thing. And like if you went past a certain point and you didn't challenge this one guy, you did not get a chance to get that card again. Never. 9 had the card game and it changed things a little bit, but it wasn't, there was nothing that was, 9 had no items locked behind it. None. You'd get some items like potions or Phoenix Downs or ethers or whatever, but it wasn't like, oh my god, I need to win this battle or I'm screwed. Like for me being a perfectionist and a collector and a big time like advocate for 100%ing these games, I couldn't get behind 8's crap. I mean, I did do it eventually, but it was extremely long, drawn out, and boring. I hated every single minute of Final Fantasy VIII. The summons were boring. The story was dull. The last boss was a joke. Leveling was more of a pain. Like, you could literally get level 99 in the first section of the game. And it wasn't even that hard to do. It didn't even take that long. It took you 5 hours. It was a joke. It was like a slap in the face. And the max level wasn't 99. It was 100. Which was even worse. So, anyway, excuse my Final Fantasy VIII rant. I don't like that game. It leaves a bad taste in my mouth. And it had this like weird like mashing system whenever the summons were being summoned. Like you'd have to mash square, and it would hurt your hand after a while. I mean, that was the one time I wish I had a turbo controller. But anyway, get back to 9. 9 had really fun like chocobo like mini game. It had this like little mini game where you would deliver mail to these between mogs and stuff, and I don't remember if there was any item locked behind it. I don't think so. I think it was just this cute little thing to do while you're in a town. Like, oh, I better check and make sure there's no mail to go out or go in or whatever. The battle music was great. The bosses were entertaining, not super hard or anything, but they were entertaining. Like I said, there was a bunch of throwbacks to tactics in there and the other games. Like I remember there's a character called Beatrix, I think Beatrix or something like that, and she's a knight and she has all these awesome like holy knight abilities that were in tactics, and I was just like, oh, this is a lot of fun. Being that like she doesn't join your team, but like she's a big character in the game. And then we got going on, and then going into the PS2 era. So PS2 launches, and almost immediately after the PlayStation 2 is here, we get Final Fantasy X. So 10 was kind of a big deal. PS2 had a lot more memory and RAM, and we could utilize things a little bit differently. So PS2 had Final Fantasy X had another one of those like weird convoluted stories, but it wasn't overly convoluted and it made sense by the end. Like you got to the end, you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. The biggest change to 10 was we could swap our characters in and out of as we wanted in battle, and each character, at least until you get to the end of the game, like it matters. Like your main character, he's really good at killing like wolves and nimble creatures. You have a character that is good at hitting flying characters. You have a magic character that destroys elementals really well. You have a brawler who can knock down armored units. You have another one that is kind of like a free character, and what I mean by that is you can mold him to be whichever one you want, because like his tree lets you have more freedom where you go. And then you had a healer slash summoner, and another thing I liked about 10 was that the summons, like you summon them, but you still control the summon. Like you tell the summon to attack, defend, use magic, and you can teach the summon abilities. You can grow the summon stats. It was a really innovative system. It was bold on Square's part to do that, like to implement something at the entry 10 of the series. To do that is ballsy, and it paid off. 10 was a huge success. Yuna is the main. I mean, it's hard to, like, the hero's name is Titus, but the main character is Yuna, and because the game is all about her. So she is one of the most cosplayed Final Fantasy characters to date, besides maybe Sephiroth. And 10 has been ported to PS. It came out for PlayStation 2. And 10 was also about the time that we started seeing the regular version and the international version. So take 10 for instance. 10 had the international version had optional harder bosses, a different sphere system, just changes that were nice, but for some reason they didn't bring that to the US version. I think that the Japanese kind of thought that we were stupid over here, we wouldn't be able to handle a harder difficulty, and the international version was harder, but not that much harder. The version for the PS3 and PS4 is international. Then we got Final Fantasy X-2, which was the first time that Square would launch a actual sequel to a Final Fantasy game. So all the Final Fantasies, while they are in a numbered order, they are not direct sequels, except 10 and 10-2, and then 13 and 13-2 and 13-3. So 10-2, you follow Yuna, Riku, and a new character called Pain through what happened after the events of 10. And she's like looking for Titus the whole time. While the game had balls, I guess would be a phrase. It's basically a Final Fantasy version of Charlie's Angels. You have 3 girls walking around, going to different areas, doing this, that, and that, and they report to a higher power. That's essentially what 10-2 was. And for what it was fine. It had a really cool, like, had a job system where you could like swap jobs in battle, which 13 would borrow from later. But it was fine. It was, for what it was good. Definitely not my top for sure, and definitely not one of the highest selling of this in the franchise either. It had mixed reviews for sure. And then we entered the MMO era, so that was about 2001, 2002. So EverQuest was getting huge around this time. So Final Fantasy wanted to combat this. Now keep in mind, in Japan, Final Fantasy XI had already been well established before the States got it. But when the PS2 got popular over here, when we got it and everything, in Japan, Final Fantasy XI was doing extremely well. So Final Fantasy XI was a MMO that had a monthly subscription, and you had to pay for each additional character you created. I did not ever play 11. I think I played it for about 5 minutes, honestly. My friends played it. I heard really good things about it. I didn't have the money. B, as a point in my life where I was working my butt off to survive, so I didn't have anything that I could really do to play an MMO. I didn't have the time either, because Final Fantasy 11 was very time consuming. I mean, you could play for hours and hours and hours and maybe go up one level. It was very time consuming. I did not have either A, the time, or B, the desire to want to spend money on something like that. So, and you know, back then, not everybody had high-speed internet. You couldn't play that on dial-up. You had to play it on high-speed internet, and very few of us had it. I think Pat did back then, because he played a lot of StarCraft and Diablo, but I didn't for sure. So Final Fantasy 11 was a huge success. It had like 11 or 12 expansions or some shit. It was huge. So I got passed over for 11, and then we got Final Fantasy 12. Now, Final Fantasy 12 was another one that had it had an international and a US release. Nobody even got to touch the international edition until just recently, unless they actually went over and bought one from there. But back then, there's region codes, so like a PS2 in Japan and a PS2 in America won't be able to play the same games. So it was very unlikely that you were going to actually be able to play the international version. So the big difference between Final Fantasy 12 International versus Final Fantasy 12 US, Final Fantasy 12 International had a drop system. That's really the big difference. There might be a few others that I missed, but I honestly don't know. The International Edition was actually released recently on the PS4. I have it. It's a lot of fun. 12 was one of my favorite ones. I just don't have the time to sit there and play every RPG I want to play and still make stream content. So let's see here. So 12. 12 I was extremely excited for because it took place in Ivalice, which is the same universe as Final Fantasy Tactics. So obviously it was right up my alley. Good story. Tons of content. It adapted a MMO style of combat. And around the time 12 was released was the time World of Warcraft was coming out. So I was playing both. I was playing WoW and I was playing 12. I played 12 a lot. A lot. And it was an extremely rewarding game. Like 100%. It was a ton of fun. I enjoyed every second of it. Then we come up to then there wasn't a whole lot going on in the Final Fantasy world. We wouldn't see another Final Fantasy until Final Fantasy 13 would launch in 2007. So most of you, some of you know, some of you don't, I played World of Warcraft for 12 years. I was very much a MMO player for a very long time. When 13 came out, was WoW's life was at Wrath of the Lich King, was its second expansion. That was when the game started to become a little bit easier. I didn't have to raid 5 or 6 nights a week, and so I had time to play another RPG. So Final Fantasy 13 comes out. 13 got like really weird reviews. Like half of people loved it, half the people absolutely hated it. I was like kind of in the middle. Like it was a very linear game. There wasn't a lot of like, you can leave this area to go do this extra stuff. Like it was like, you can grab this item, but you're going to this spot, then you're going to get there. And so once you got to chapter 10, then you had that option to like leave and go do extra bonus stuff or whatever and go explore. And which kind of like, the other games were like that to a point, but you still had some freedom. So, you know, fans are like, this game is too linear. I want to be able to explore. I want to be able to do those things. And one thing I will commend 13 for was the storyline was brave. And it actually was the only second game in Final Fantasy's history to have a African-American character in it. We hadn't seen that a lot of that. We had in 7 we seen it, and then we didn't really see it again until 13. I thought that was a cool thing. It was a really interesting dynamic, and I was like, okay, a little bit of diversity, that's a good thing. And then we got 13.2, which was just more of the same. It was a time travel themed game, but it wasn't as fun for sure. I found it kind of dull. I'm not gonna lie, I found it pretty dull. I didn't actually finish it, so you know, there's that. And then 13.3, I never played it. It was called Lightning Returns. I never touched it. I heard it was like an adventure game, though. I don't know. I literally never played it. I don't know. And then we got... And I want to say it was... maybe like 6 months or so after 13 came out. Or maybe it was during 13's development, but Final Fantasy 14 came out. And it was another MMO, because 11 was started to die down and stuff. They wanted to make a new MMO, and it was a total flop. People like despised it. So Square like wiped the slate clean, remade the game from bottom up, and then in 2012, maybe 12. No, it had to be 2013. Somewhere around there, A Realm Reborn came out, and I was like all on board because I wanted to play an MMO with my real friends. I'd stopped playing World of Warcraft so much. I was like, oh, I want to play a good MMO with my friends. So we all decided to play Final Fantasy 14. And I have a super bad habit of rushing to the end of everything. Like in an MMO, I'm opposite than I am in a console RPG. Like I want to go right to max level and then do everything else. So I did. I was the first one of us to hit max level. All my other friends were just like enjoying their time. They weren't trying to rush. They were just like enjoying the dungeons and, you know, doing this and that. And I got bored because I was like at max level and like doing nothing, like chilling, waiting for my friends to catch up. So I quit playing. I would go back to play the game at each expansion. The game was beautiful though. It had great music. Ton of fun. Now, Final Fantasy 15, we're at our grand stop. Okay, so when I saw the demo for this game, I was immediately turned off. Let's see what save I need to open. So, I mean, like, I can't even, like, describe it. I was immediately just like, oh, really? But that was premature. The game is actually really fun, and it's the complete opposite of 13. It's extremely open world. You have a destination to go to for your storyline quests and stuff, but it kind of feels like a single player MMO, which is like perfect for somebody like me, because that's what I loved about MMOs, is just being able to like run around and do quests and do what I want. And that's exactly what excuse me. Sorry. My phone's acting weird. Anyway, this is exactly what I wanted in a single player one. Like, I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, you can just go do what you want and get on it. And 15 does that extremely well. The thing that turned me off about 15 immediately was that there's a car, and you're just like four guys like driving around doing stuff. It does break away from the usual formula, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, things have to innovate, things have to change and mold over time. If you want every RPG to just be like, oh, I'm from this town and I'm gonna go and go on this weird adventure and meet these weird people, don't get me wrong, that was fun, but those times are over. If you want to play those games are there to play. You can go play them. But expecting them to just remake that same game over and over and over and over again is kind of stupid on your part. So, Final Fantasy 15, main character's name is Noctis. He's a prince. This game has like a storyline about an empire kind of overthrowing a kingdom, and you're trying to overthrow this empire, and your friends are part of what they call Crown's Guard. But like, if you open the map here, there's tons of exploring. You can go get items at each of these little spots on your map that constantly respawn. I'm really enjoying the game. I've been playing it for about 20 hours. My save says 63, but that's only because I've left my game on, gone to bed, or don't want to, or deal with the kids or whatever. Tons of exploring. Another thing I didn't like at first was, so you have your car, and then you have this character here, Cindy. So I kind of felt like the game was a little bit sexist because
It's nice to not have to kill anything.
The mechanic here is a scantily clad girl. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to understand that this game is made by Japanese men, and this is a different world, like, than in the US, you know. So she's basically eye candy, but she has like a good character. Like, her character development's good, and you can actually get your car customized by her.
Well, ain't you a lucky one? I've got just the thing.
And they did a good job at like depicting how American lifestyle goes. So you like customize it, and
What are y'all after today?
you can change the color, how it is. You can install
fixing to
components that make it
upgrade?
perform better. So I'm not going to go through every aspect
Hey,
of 15,
Sanya.
but I really enjoyed it. And the game looks absolutely beautiful. Like they did a great job with this game. Absolutely did a great job with this game. I'd love to see another, like, if any game got another sequel, this game deserves a sequel for sure. I'm in chapter 9, so I don't have
All
a
pretty
opinion on the
again.
ending yet
Take
because I
care
haven't
of her,
seen it
you
yet.
hear?
But if you guys want me to like do a full playthrough, you know, from beginning to end, you can kind of see the story if you're not going to play it yourself. I don't mind doing that sort of thing. Just depends on what you guys kind of want. So for 15, I'd definitely give it a solid 8 out of 10. It's not my favorite game, but it's definitely in top 5 because it offers a lot to the gameplay experience. A lot of callbacks. It's a giant love letter to the fans, honestly. They Square did a fantastic job with this game, and I commend them for the effort they put forth in this game. Another thing I loved about this game was that you can actually play music from other games. And this is the music from Final Fantasy 14 that I really enjoyed. And this is like 13 and stuff. This is 12. So that's my review for 15. I think it offers a lot, and there's tons of content to it, and they're like they just recently updated 15 again. So I gotta say I was like really impressed with it. Did a great job. So the next order of business is to talk about stream schedules coming up. Okay, so you guys know that I was planning to do the Evil Within 2. Ever since I've seen the trailer for that game, I immediately wanted to stream it because I just love it. So right now I have 2 halfway done playthroughs. I have one for Resident Evil 4 and one for Resident Evil 1. So starting tomorrow, I'm going to restart Resident Evil 1, and we're going to go right through the whole game. And then Resident Evil 4, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to knock it out. Then I'm going to do Revelations 2 from beginning to end. Revelations 2, I should be able to do in one stream. I was able to beat that game in 2 hours and 40 minutes. And Revelations 2 was fantastic. It was definitely a solid entry. If I have time, and I also need to knock out Revelations, or not Revelations, I need to knock out Let's see, Revolution 2, 4. Oh, and Resident Evil 0 needs to go in there. Resident Evil 0 I probably have the least experience with, honestly. So after that, then we're going to do Evil Within 1, and hopefully by then we'll be in October around Evil Within 2 time. So in October, the two main playthroughs, playing the streams I'm going to be doing is going to be Evil Within 2 and South Park. So listen, I understand that certain things offend certain people. So if South Park isn't something that you guys want to see, if you get offended easily, I would strongly suggest you don't watch it. There's going to be racist jokes, sexist jokes, making fun of everybody and everything they can find. And while I find them funny, and I'm a big, you know, I very much enjoy the show, not everybody probably feels the same way. So if you find yourself getting offended by jokes and stuff like that, I would suggest you don't watch the stream. But Evil Within 2 is going to be done first, then South Park. And after that, then I'll probably start doing some RPG stuff like Final Fantasy 7, maybe some Final Fantasy 9, just different ones. And also, I want to try. I have a collection of retro games on my system that I want to stream. So I'm thinking if I have time in October, I will find a week where we can do just retro stuff. I have like a Disney's Afternoon collection to do, and then maybe and I have a game called Axiom Verge that Pat bought me to stream. So
It's hot.
I'll stream that too. So that's the stream schedule coming up. I am working on some personal talk videos. I want to talk about depression and suicide. I want to talk about the effects that those things have, living and dealing with anxiety, people with anxiety or mental disorders. I want to have real talks. I've been working on a script for a couple weeks now, but tomorrow afternoon I'm going to buckle down and finish a script, and then I'll be making that that video for YouTube. Obviously, I'm not going to put that on Twitch. Coming soon. I would say within a week or two. Again, if that's not something that you care about or want to watch, then don't watch it. That's my honest opinion. Just don't watch it. It's important to me, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's important to you. So that's my plans for the channel. My thoughts on Final Fantasy, and let me know what you guys think. You guys like videos where I talk a little bit more like about my history and what I've done? For those of you who don't know, and if you do, let me know. I'll make some more of them. If not, then I probably won't. I want to make sure that you guys are enjoying the stuff that I'm putting out, and that I'm not wasting all of your time, because that's the last thing I would want to do. So other than that, guys, that's pretty much all I got. If you're on the fence about Final Fantasy 15, I would say give it a shot. Rent it. Get Gamefly, rent it. Check it out. If it's not for you, that's cool too. But I have been having a blast with it, and I hope you guys do too. Alright guys, well that's it for tonight. This is the third time I'm recording this video, and I hope to God it actually recorded. And I will talk to you guys soon. See you guys tomorrow night.